Hello students, in this video lecture, today I am going to explain the story The Master Artist composed by Carol Moore. The Master Artist is a short illustrated children's story which was set in the year 1300. The story is about a famous master artist whose name was Monsieur Sinilabe. Monsieur is a French word, as you already know, which means Mr. So, Monsieur or Mr. Sinilabe was a very famous and renowned artist of his time. He had worked for 45 years as an artist, and in the year 1392, children, in the month of May, he was ready to retire of being an artist. One fine day, a rich patron means a person who supports or promotes painters, craftsmen, artists, or writers. So, a rich patron named Giuliano Bartoli called Monsieur Sinilabe and requested him to paint his portrait on the wall of his dining hall. Children, the size of the wall was 20 feet, which means the painter had to make a 20-foot tall portrait or a photo. Just imagine, the size was so big. First, Sinilabe, the artist, thought for a while. Then he refused to paint because he was about to retire and he wanted to enjoy his life after retirement. But later he thought, you'll see that the artist changed his mind and opinion and agreed to paint on the 20 feet tall wall, but on his own conditions. On his own conditions means he put forward some of his conditions in front of the patron. Now, children, let's know what were the conditions of the painter. The first condition was that he didn't want to charge money. He did not want to take any money from the patron. He only wanted food and bed. It means a place to stay in Giuliano's mansion so that he could paint peacefully. The second condition was that he should not get disturbed by any means. Even Mr. Giuliano Bartoli should not interfere while he does his work, and he'll also not be allowed to see his portrait. Means the portrait will be kept hidden until it was prepared. Now, the third condition. What was it? The patron Giuliano Bartoli need not to pose for him. Why? Children, because according to the artist, he had an excellent memory. Therefore, he had captured his photo in his mind. And the fourth and the last and interesting condition was that he should be allowed to paint in his own way. Children, why did the artist put the fourth condition? Here you should know this because the artist wanted to give his imaginations wings and was equally had hungered to break free from all restraints, from all kinds of traditional art forms. He did not want to follow the rules and regulations of the guild. That in that time the guild was very powerful and they whatever rules and regulation they had formed, all the craftsmen, painters and artists had to follow. And this artist wanted after his retirement to get freedom to paint in his own style or the way he wanted. Now both of them agreed. Both of them means the painter and the patron, both of them agreed and they signed a contract. The artist was very excited because he got a large and wonderful space to paint using his own imagination. And for the last 45 years, as in the beginning of the explanation I have told you, he had waited and longed for it. He had a great desire to paint in his own style. This shows that he has always wanted to create a masterpiece painting in the way he wanted. This was really a precious moment for the artist. He was too happy, but he did not reveal his excitement and happiness. Rather, he hid all that was going on his mind from Bartley. Now, children, you will see that the next scene changes and the artist drew a high curtain in front of the 20 feet tall wall and started preparing or painting the portrait. Portrait means photo. Even Bartoli could not see it. He could only hear the different kinds of sounds produced by the paint brushes, like swooshing, clanking, and slapping. In my previous video, while discussing the difficult words, I have explained these words to you. Several times he tried to see the painting, but the painter did not allow him to do so. Yes, children, though Mr. Bartoli wanted to see his portrait, he was not allowed. Every time the artist from behind the curtain assured him that he was preparing a masterpiece. Therefore, it will take some time. And he suggested Bartley to practice some patience. Like this, a week passed by, and Bartley again rushed inside the room and he insisted him to show his painting. But the artist didn't show him. Slowly, time passed by. The days changed into weeks, and gradually the weeks into months. Bartley was very eager, and he somehow wanted to see his portrait on the 20 feet tall wall. So he requested forcefully. He rushed inside and he insisted. But the artist told him that he was lucky as he, the master artist, was preparing his portrait, and Bartley should know that he was a student of Ambrogio Lorenzetti. I have told you Ambrogio Lorenzetti was an Italian painter who was a famous painter of his time. Thus, he could not dishonor his name. He told Bartley to have his trust upon him. Children, then in paragraph number 13, you'll find that slowly half a year went by, means 6 months were over. By now, Signor Bartley was filled with anxiety and anger. He was much frustrated. Therefore, one fine day, he walked straight into the banquet hall and demanded Sinilabe to show him his portrait. And to your surprise, you'll see that this time the artist did not say anything. Instead, he pulled aside the 20-foot tall curtain. Children, can you imagine Bartley's reactions? What actually happened to him when he saw his portrait on the wall? Was he happy, sad, angry, or what? Giuliano Bartoli was extremely shocked to see his painting. Yes, he was extremely surprised. That is why you will see in your book, in the paragraph, it is written, his mouth fell open. That means he was extremely surprised, which was associated with shock. He stood for a minute. Did he like it? No, children, he didn't like his painting at all. His eyes turned red in anger. He grabbed his hair, he jumped, his eyebrows twisted. He was highly frustrated and he was highly disappointed also to see the work of the artist. He had never imagined that the master artist would paint such an absurd kind of painting. So he shouted on him. He scolded him that he was not a painter or a good artist, but a thief or a madman. He told him that he would not give him even a single penny for the kind of silly painting he had prepared. Silly painting means ridiculous. Now, children, tell me why Bartley didn't like the portrait. What's your opinion? After all, it was a 20-foot tall painting prepared by the famous painter of that time. He was a master artist. What was wrong in that portrait? It had taken 6 long months to be prepared. Actually, when you will evaluate, then you will come to know that the master artist Mushia Sinilabe had drawn the painting in a modern art form known as cubism, using various straight lines, which is known as geometric painting. This kind was not liked or appreciated by the people of that time. Towards the end of the story, you'll find that two opposite emotions take place. First one, Bartley didn't like the painting. This expresses sadness and anger. But on the other hand, the artist Sinilabe liked his painting and he was quite happy for what he had created. He was not at all guilty. He liked what he had prepared. This shows happiness and a sense of satisfaction. Children, later in the history of art and painting, you'll find the name of Pablo Picasso, who used this very technique and became one of the most popular painters of the world. This technique is known as a cubism, which is modern art form. The story tells us that an artist who lived in 5 centuries earlier had discovered the modern art, but he did not get any appreciation or recognition for it. From the chapter, it is very evident that Giuliano Bartoli did not understand what the artist had tried to do. He thought that Sinilabe had cheated on him and had lived at his expense for nearly half a year, 6 months, and had not yet drawn a decent portrait of Signor Bartoli. Okay, children, I know that you like a movie which has an action story or which is adventurous, thriller, or a comedy. In the same way, this story of the master artist features suspense, as we have to wait to find out what the painter had drawn. The rich Italian patron Giuliano Bartoli himself had to wait for 6 months before he got a chance to see what his portrait looked like. And at the end, we readers understand what happened and why. We feel a lot of mixed emotions at the same time. A feeling of shock because the portrait was very different from what it was meant to be, a sign of relief to know that the portrait was actually completed, and surprised or astonished to see Mushia Sinilabe's cubist expressions. Now, children, I'll show you some paintings of Pablo Picasso. You can even Google to see more of his artwork. Okay, children, I gave you an explicit explanation of the chapter. You should listen it twice or thrice to understand the story. You may also go through my previous video, The Master Artist, Part 1, where I had discussed the word meanings, told you more about the author, and had read the chapter. Thank you, take care. We'll meet in the next video.